Now let's continue in 1 Samuel. We've been studying this book, 1 Samuel. Now we come to, we revisit chapter 21 in some sense. Now last week we learned about, how the Christian must be so careful of fear. Because fear will make us forget who God is, will make us forget what God can do, will make us forget that nothing in this world can be compared to the power and the wisdom of God. We, as Christians, should not need to fear. We are immortal till God calls us home. But David, as we read, he feared. Look at chapter 21 in verse 2. Verse 2. Now here, David, because of his fear, forgot that, God can help him. He needed provisions. Food. And then in verse 8, he needed weapon, all right? But David would lie. I'm on king's business, secret mission. Give me these things. David was so afraid he forgot that he did not need to sin. That is how we are. We forget all these things the moment we have fear. Now this week we want to learn another aspect of, what fear leads to eventually. All right? In fact, here you see, from the beginning, David's fear led him to deceive, to lie. And we read this morning, he led him to act like a lunatic, a madman, to deceive again. Now, but before we go further, there is something that we have to be clear about. We did a series on truly truthful, correct? Not too long back. The Christian must live a life that is truly truthful. Now, what is the difference between that and this? Now, in that, we are reminded that the Christian must be honest to God, be honest to men about who we really are. Right? Don't pretend, don't be a hypocrite to try and portray an image of we are so holy, right? We are so good, but actually inside us, we continue in disobedience. We just want people to have a good impression of us. And we think as long as outwardly we are living rightly, that is all that matters. Let's search our hearts, right? Are we truly truthful to God? And are we really who we are? Are we wearing a mask? And that is all. You're not saved, but you act like you're saved, right? You are not obeying the Lord, but you deceive your parents, you deceive your friends. But this time, we are learning something more about, David was afraid and he deceived to escape. Right? We've been learning about truly truthful. We deceive, maybe out of pride, to look good, to give an impression. But here, David was not so much doing that. His fear caused him to deceive, to try to, find a solution to his problem, to escape, right, being killed, escape being caught. So this is the difference. So do not mix it up and have a clarity about what we must learn. So we come to chapter 21. Now here we saw David, as we said, look at verse 10, chapter 21, verse 10. And David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. Now in fact, when he was before the king of Gath, you look at verse 12. David laid up these words in his heart and was sore afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. Sore afraid. First it was for fear he fled from Saul. He ran to another king, King Achish. King Achish is, the Bible tells us, the king of Gath, all right? A Philistine king, living in the Philistine territory. And the Bible tells us that David was so afraid. Very, very afraid, trembling fear, all right? Breaking down, literally. That kind of fear. Now, it caused David to act like a madman. Now, what are we to learn? Today we want to learn that fear causes us to lie, deceive. But deception, lying, is very deceptive. So hence the title, The Deceptiveness of Deception. The deceptiveness of deception. Deception will deceive you about many things. Please remember that. Fear causes that. And deception will lead to more and more. And you will see in the case of David's life. It deceived him into many things, and he ended up worse and worse. Now, that is the power of this sin of lying and deception. It's a very dangerous effect on you. Now, the first thing I hope that we learn about the deceptiveness of deception is, what does it deceive you into? Now, it deceives you, like here in David's case, into thinking that deception will help you achieve your purpose. Deception will help you achieve your purpose. But we will see it doesn't. Maybe temporarily only, but it doesn't. How do we know that? Now here, remember in the case of David, he kept telling, look at chapter 21, verse 2. He said, I am on the king's business. And in fact, this is a secret mission. Do not tell anyone. The king said, let no man know. Why did David want to do that? Hopefully that, the priest and the people present will not say anything. Since this is a secret mission, we better don't talk about this outside. All right? David was hoping that through that, he can keep escaping, and King Saul, who is after his life, will not know where he is. He thought that by deception, he will he'll achieve his purpose. Does it work? Now please notice in verse 7, chapter 21, verse 7. Now a certain man of the servants of who? Saul, the very person who is after David's life, was there that day. Doeg was there. This person is called Doeg, right? King Saul's man. Look at chapter 22. Now, later on when Saul said, you need to tell me where David is. Look at chapter 22, verse 9. And then answered Doeg, the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, the location revealed, and to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Now, all that deception of lying was no use. In the end, he was still exposed. Now, Christian, we often think that deception, when we do anything, this will help me get what I want. Whether it's deliverance, whether it's, in David's case, getting provisions, food, getting, protection of weapons. He thought that he will get all those things and be safe and escape. But no, it will be exposed. It will be made known. Don't be so foolish to fall into Satan's deception that you will achieve what you want. There will always be a trail. When you deceive, there will always be a trail of some evidence. Now, of course, I'm not saying if you feel that there's no evidence, then it's all right. Then go ahead and deceive. You will not achieve what you want. But not only that, deception makes you think you can achieve what you want. It also makes you think that it will help the situation. It will help the situation. David not only thought that he could get food for his people who was with him, he will get a sword to try and defend his people, at least, if he has a sword. He said, this will make things better. This will make things good. And maybe for a while, it may seem so. There's a deceptiveness of deception. For a while, it may be the case. Now, did it make things better? Look at chapter 22. Look at chapter 22. Doeg revealed David's location. Doeg revealed that he got help. All right? Now, what happened? Look at chapter 22, verse 13. And Saul said unto him, why have you conspired against me? Saul called up the priest, Ahimelech. Ahimelech was called up, and he said, bring all the priests. Come before me. Look at chapter 22, verse 13. And they say, why hast thou conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise up against me, to lie in wait as this day? So now, Ahimelech is in great trouble. Then the next one. Now what happened? Because of that, look at verse 18. And the king said to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priest. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priest and slew on that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. 70, that is 85 priests because of David. Now, next one in verse 19. Not just there, and Nob, the city of priests, smote he with the edge of the sword both men and women, children and sucklings and oxes and asses and sheep, and with the edge of the sword. Now, because David thought this helps the situation, did it help? It made the situation far, far worse. In fact, David knew in his heart it was his fault. Look at verse 22. Now, there was one of the descendant of Ahimelech, the priest. He managed to escape. He went to David. Now, look at chapter 22, verse 22. What did David say? Now, he said, then David said unto Abiathar, the person who escaped, I knew it that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul. Now, then David said this, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. I have occasioned all the death of all the persons of thy father's house. I have occasioned means what? David said, I am the cause that event arose. I'm the cause of that occasion. Did it make the situation better? No, deception made it far worse. We think that we fall into the deception that just because we got away, then things are fine from here on. Now, in fact, how did it make things worse? If you look at chapter 21, see how God describes the situation for us. Chapter 21, verse 7. Now a certain man of the servants of Saul was there, detained before the Lord. Detained before the Lord. And his name was Doeg. Detained before the Lord. For some reason, God says, for his reason, Doeg had to be. Doeg was detained, means he was in a sense, for whatever reason, forced to stay with the priest at that time. The reason was not revealed. God just simply says, I made sure that Doeg was there, detained before the Lord. Why did God want us to know this? Now you think about this. If David did not deceive Ahimelech, Ahimelech would not have given David the food and the sword. How do we know that? Look at chapter 22. Look at what Ahimelech the priest said. Verse 15. Now he says, did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. Let not the king impute anything unto thy servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all of this, less or more. Thy servant knew nothing of all of this, less or more. He was saying, I was deceived. I did not know anything more than what David told me, that he was on secret mission sent by you. Therefore, he need food, he need weapons. That's all I know. Now, what does he mean? Look at verse 14. Verse 15, did I begin to inquire of God for him? Now, he said, this is not the first time I helped David. David is your soldier. In verse 14, he is honorable. So when I see David, I will just help him because he's the most honorable soldier. That's what we know of him. So Ahimelech was deceived by David. And as a result, this happened. You say, what has it to do with Doeg? God said, I made sure that Doeg, a witness, was there. Now, David, if you did not deceive Ahimelech, he said, please let these things be found. I am loyal to you, king. Now, that is why earlier on, when Ahimelech saw that David didn't have soldiers with him, he was already afraid. Ahimelech was, in a sense, loyal correctly to the king, all right? Although he didn't know the king was so wicked. What we're saying is this. Doeg, if David did not deceive Ahimelech, Doeg would have been a witness. Ahimelech would most likely say, if you have no soldiers with you, now I am concerned, right? There must be something amiss. What you ask for me, I cannot readily give it to you. I probably need to check, all right? As priests, we serve the nation, the king. So we have to be careful. Ahimelech would have a witness of Doeg. But instead, what Doeg witness was what? Ahimelech did help David. And that did not help the situation because the king just refused to believe. The king just refused to believe. With Saul's state of mind, we fully expected that. He refused to believe. Look at chapter 22, verse 16. Although Ahimelech said, nothing more or less than this. And the king said, thou shalt surely die. Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. Christian, do not think that deception, even when you see that it seems to work, will actually make things better. Something will eventually come out. Be honest. Learn to trust God. If David just simply did the right thing, all these things would not have become in such a huge mess. Imagine the whole city was also killed by a wicked king. Children, women. Did it help? Adults, parents, don't be so foolish to think like that. Singles, don't be so foolish to think that deception actually will make things better. Just be honest. I remember when I was working, I know of someone who, was accused, all right, of doing something wrong that would be a cause of detriment to the company. Then the person was in fear, right? Accused of that. Then the investigation started. And the investigators of the company say, send me your emails, especially regarding this matter, all right, to the customer. Send it to me. Then the secretary asked, boss, should I send this to them? And this person said, send it, right? Well, of course, his heart was trembling, right? He could be fired. This could be used as incriminating. They could twist and distort and use it as incriminating evidence. But I say, I've not done anything. I choose, even in fear, I choose not to try and escape by saying, actually, the secretary said, if we send this, you can be in trouble. And the person say, I will not deceive, I will not lie by saying, no, there's no communication about this matter. The person say, just send it to the investigators. The investigation ended very quickly. The investigators basically told this person, you know why it ended up so quickly and you're cleared of everything? Because you gave us the trail of emails. And in there, we find nothing incriminating. In fact, you did that which was right. Right? Always live with integrity. You did which was right. And in fact, the fact that you did not conceal, you sent us all this, immediately told us, we received it so fast, we already knew a person who does that has nothing to hide. And when we went through, is nothing. In fact, the person that accused ended up in trouble. Now, when we fear, we feel that, now, if I cover up, if I lie, I will get away. Then I escape. Sometimes we think, I am being incriminated, right? So there's nothing wrong for me to do that. Don't be so foolish. If David did not deceive, if David was not deceived into the deceptiveness that deception will achieve his purpose, will make things better, it would not have ended up like that. I just imagine if this employee said, just keep it away. You cannot hide. Christian, know this. You cannot hide forever. The Bible tells us your sin will find you out. Even if you're at the one who is being persecuted, live without deception. So this became worse. Very bad situation resulted. Learn from this. Now, what else should we learn? What else should we learn? Then we have the situation later on of David in chapter 21, verse 10, starting to act differently. Now, the first thing we want to learn is, look at verse 10, and David arose and fled that day for fear of Saul and went to Achish, the king. of Gath fled to Achish, the king of Gath. And when he was there, in verse 11, the soldiers said to Achish, the king of Gath, he said, "Oh, is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing to one another of him in dances, saying, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000s? Then the Bible tells us, at that point, David's heart was afraid when he heard these words. Why? Now, all of a sudden, David, they said, Saul only killed thousands of our Philistine soldiers. David killed 10,000s. Right? David is a great threat to us. David caused great trouble for us. Now, all of a sudden, with that, he began to realize, oh no, this situation is worse. He thought that since Saul is his enemy now, by running over to the other side, he may get help. You know, fear makes us do things like that, right? Foolish things. Now he thinks, well, I am in trouble. They may think I am a spy. They may think that I'm here to be a spy to them, against them. Now, with this fear, the Bible tells us, look at verse 13, and he changed his behavior before them and feigned himself. So he pretended, he deceived, pretended to be mad, and scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Now here David, having experienced just recently, deception got him provisions, got him protective equipment. Having learned just recently, all right, deception allowed him to escape, thinking that now my escape is secret. Now employs the same tactic again. You know, the deceptiveness of deception is this. When you experience that it works, you will be deceived into thinking that, well, let me keep using this. Let me keep using this. You will keep lying, deceiving, acting dishonestly. That is what deception deceives you into behaving. You will develop more and more deceptive ways in your life. That is what will happen. So, children, do not be deceptive. All right? From a young age, if you learn that, lying, deception, and you feel that I got away once, this works, it will lead you to a more and more deceptive life. Same for the adults at work. You found that I escaped, all right, from this, so all is fine. The next time there is trouble, whether it's caused by you or not caused by you, you think again, that worked. The deceptiveness of deception, but eventually it will come out. So that is the third thing we learn about deception. The first is, you think it achieves your purpose? No. Long term, it won't. You think that it will help the situation? No. Sin always makes the situation worse. Number three is, because you experience it, you will keep doing it. That's the danger of deception. Now, when David behaved like that, the next deception, the fourth one, is we learn that it will bring shame to God's name. You see, we are so concerned about our own deliverance. We are so concerned about making sure that we get what we want. We stop remembering the deceptiveness of deception is you will do things forgetting that it will shame God's name. How do we learn that? Look at verse 10, chapter 21, verse 10. Now he fled and went to the king of Gath. And I want you to notice in verse 12, and David laid up these things in his heart and was so afraid of the king of Gath. God repeated the king of Gath, the king of Gath, to draw our attention to a particular thing. Now, if you turn to chapter 17, all right? Turn to chapter 17, verse 4. And then went out a champion out of the captain of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath. Goliath of Gath. David, when he faced Goliath, he told the people, he told Goliath of Gath, I want you to know that you come with me with weapons and all that. I come to you in the name of the living God. All right, if you turn to chapter 17. How was David when he met Goliath of Gath? He was so concerned about the name of God. He was so concerned about the glory of God. Look at verse 46 of chapter 17, which we've learned all this before. Now he says, this day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and thine head from thee, and I will give thy carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know there is a God in Israel. Now he wanted the people to know, I serve the living God. How dare you defy and blaspheme the name of the living God of Israel? He was so concerned about the glory of God. He can't stand it that when people would blaspheme his name, he doesn't care whether it's a giant or not. Now that was David, so concerned for the glory of God. But what's the deceptiveness of deception? He experienced, I can escape. Now, no longer now he was thinking about the glory of God. Going to Gath, the king of Gath, the very location where the giant blasphemed the glory of God. And now he turns to him for protection. What shame it brought to the living God of Israel. Now, when we deceive, and when it comes out, and the things that we do shows like as if God is nothing, we will bring shame to God's name. Deception is you telling the world, God, my God cannot help me. Now remember David, and like us, we are immortal until God calls us home. We will not die a second earlier on earth when it is not time for us to return home. Please know that. Having learned that, and David having experienced that, but yet he did not think, one day I will see. David knew that he was anointed. He has been anointed already. One day he will be king of Israel. It never occurred to him, or rather he did not think, and that's the deceptiveness of deception. He did not think, if I deceive, if I act like this before the king of the Philistines. Now, one day, when I sit on the throne of Israel, what will the people think? All the things that David said about who the living God of Israel is, his power, all right, that he will deliver. All those things were false because David himself did not believe in it. David defeated Goliath not because of the Lord of Israel. David defeated Goliath pure luck. That is all. Christian, when we deceive men, we are telling people all the things that I've said about my God. He can help. He can deliver. I have no fear. I can trust him. You trust in him. All the things that you say, now because you deceive. And it will come out. Please know this. Your sin will find it. It will come out one day. Remember then what people will think. Everything that you said, you never believed in it. David, you came to us. You seek help in the very tribe that you defied. You saw us as more powerful, right? Potentially, some believe that the tribe of Gath has more giants than other locations, right? So you see, you come to a place where there are more giants. Well, you defeated our giant by pure luck. You see, all these things brought shame to God's name when David ran to the king of Gath for shelter. Now, next one. What must we learn? Now, not only will you, the fifth one, not only will you shame God's name when all things comes out, it will come out. Because you're going to be immortal, right? while you're living, when it comes out, this is how you shame God's name. Now, the other one is it deceives you into thinking that you can escape with your testimony intact. It deceives you into thinking that you can escape with your testimony intact. That's the deception of sin, of deception. You think that, well, when it's all over, then it will be peaceful. I'm out of the situation. Well, we know the case of Ahimelech and all the priests and the city of Nob. There was horrible outcome. Like I said earlier on, David knew that he was king and he will sit on the throne one day. But he was deceived into thinking, if I just do this, things will be fine. Not thinking that what will happen. Now look at chapter 21. Chapter 21, verse 13. And he changed his behavior before them. And he feigned himself, number one, mad. And to convince them, he scrabbled on the doors of the gate and let his spittle fall down upon his beard. Here is the future king of Israel, and he will be king. Here is the one person that the world came to know. God of the living God of Israel is all-powerful and did not fear lion or beast or giants. Here is that man now reduced to this when he was afraid. That was what David was now. The man who was so courageous, who stood before Goliath when all the armies of Israel was cowering in fear behind him, facing Goliath and the armies of the Philistines behind Goliath, who spoke so courageously. That was his testimony to the world and to Israel. Well, even one day when he becomes king, the Philistines will say, oh, that David who came to us, sitting on the throne now, huh? But now we know, to escape, that is what he did. There was no honor in the people of Israel, so afraid of us, act like a madman or scrabble at the doors of the gate. Means he probably pretend to be mad and then crawl to the gate and then just scratch the gate like an animal. Let me out, scratching at the gate. Not only that, like the spittle. So he makes sure that saliva came out, It's like as if he has lost control of his bodily function. Saliva running out of and falling down all over his face, his beard, going down his beard. Reduced to a crawling, cowering coward who believed at one time, sincerely in his heart, the power of the living God. This is the king of Israel now. So one day when King David becomes king, these people will know that was who David was. Your testimony. You think that you will escape with your testimony intact. You will not. You will not. Just always remember, one day it will be exposed. And on that day, what impact will it have on my family? What impact will it have on people around me in church? What impact will it have on people who looked up to my testimony, like they looked up to Israel, to David? What will happen to all this? Now, not only that, it will now be a blot in my walk. That could have been, if I was not deceived by deception, that could have not been there. It was not necessary. Not necessary at all. God delivered David again and again and again. God delivered David from a close range multiple times, spearing of the spear at David. God delivered him multiple times. He could easily also be delivered. Now, Christian, be very concerned. Every time you think that deception, you will escape with your testimony intact, you will not. Now I also remembered, an occasion, I think I shared this before. Now this customer, they blamed the company, all right, for causing a major system outage that costed them great pain and publicity, right, and money. And the investigation began, and the when IT personnel say, it's the company that caused this, all right? Now, for months, we could not find out what was the issue, right? And for months, it was on us. Now, eventually, like I said, God will work it in such a way. Don't think that you can escape your sin. Like Doeg was there, right? Not by chance. Somehow there was a trail that this person who caused, the customer who caused the outage, he went into the system and changed some lines of codes. Very well done. He escaped for months and months and months. Now, but one day, one of the engineers of the company found that hang on, that timestamp is not regular, right? Suddenly there is an odd sequence and timing. And then we investigate, went in and say, all right, give us the backup tapes. But the engineer forgot to delete the backup tapes. From the backup tapes, when they compared, it was changed. He was fired. In fact, I remember that meeting, right? The customer, the boss even said, you just needed to admit, we make mistakes, that's all, Why did you, you're so afraid. We can understand too. These things happen. But with what you do, now we cannot help but fire you. Now, forever for this person who thought that he can escape, and he will escape with things intact, that's the deception of deception, all right? Now forever, whenever he applies for a job, you know how job applications are, right? Companies will call the other company and say, well, why did this person leave the company? Is there anything you can tell us that we should be aware of? What do you expect the company to say? Forever, it will be that blocked. Satan wants the Christian to fear. Fear makes you resort to deception to help yourself. Deception is very deceptive. It will make you think of all these things. I can escape. Things will be fine. That's all that matters. And after that, my life will be fine. Don't be so foolish. It will destroy you. Shames God, shames your testimony. Now, the last thing we want to learn is this. Not the deceptiveness of deception is you think that the ends justifies the means. Deception makes you think that the end will justify the means. Means what is the outcome, the result, now will justify what I did. David, look at chapter 21. Why did David lie to Ahimelech? Why did he deceive Ahimelech? Chapter 21, verse 2 tells us. Now, I say, I am on a king's business. It's a secret mission. Why did he lie? Verse 3. What is in thy hand? Give me 5 loaves of bread in my hand. What is there present? David's intentions were good. He was a good leader. He wanted to make sure that the servants with him have food. They are probably very hungry, on the run with him already. They are very loyal to him. So he was very thankful. So he went around to try and find food for them. That's laudable. But he thought that end, that sincerity of doing something good, justifies him lying that I'm on a king's business. Because when I'm on a king's business, especially when Ahimelech seems suspicious, that will get me help to help my people. You see, that is a deceptiveness of deception. If I get a sword, at least I can defend my people. It's a good end, right? That is my honest, sincere reason why I need to lie. I'm a king's business so that I can get a sword, right? Now, sometimes we have this idea that I am the one being persecuted. I'm the one who is wronged. I'm the one who is mistreated. And I'm the one who really want to help the people. David was exactly in that situation. He was wronged. He was wanting to be helpful for his people. Good intentions does not justify us to deceive. The ends, he got food. He got the knife. He got the sword of Goliath. He got away with his life from the king of Achish. The ends does not justify the means. Do you think that David thought that the ends justified the means? Now, we have to read 1 Samuel also in the light of the Psalms. Because now, having learned all these things about the deceptiveness of deception, we have to ask ourselves, then what should I learn? How should I respond? David learned. And in Psalm 34, let's turn to Psalm 34. So what's the lesson having known all this, the deceptiveness of deception? What are the lessons for us? Now, how should I behave? Did David learn? Now, Psalm 34. What is Psalm 34? If you read from the beginning, a psalm of David when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away and he departed. Now, this is the psalm David wrote after. All right, he acted like a madman and escaped. But you say, hey, hang on. Is the change of behavior before Abimelech? This is Abimelech, not Achish. Abimelech. So, is this the same event? Yes. All right. Abimelech is a common name for kings. Melech means king, all right, in Hebrew. Melech means king. Av means father, all right. So Abimelech is a common name given to many kings. The king is my father, so he is a descendant. He's a descendant king. That is all. So when he says David changed his behavior before Abimelech, is referring to this particular king who was actually Achish, where he changed his behavior. It's the same event, all right. So understand that. Now, if you read it, it may initially look like, well, David really believed the ends justifies the means. Because let's look at Psalm 34. Now, he said, I will bless the Lord at all times. Then verse 2, my soul shall make a boast in the Lord, and the humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Then verse 3, oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. Verse 4, I sought the Lord, and he heard me and delivered me from all my fears. All right? And then verse 6, the poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamped round about them that fear him and delivered him. Oh, taste and see the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusted him. Now, it looks like this. It looks like David said, look, now I want to thank God. Because I acted like a lunatic, and God delivered me. So let us come and give thanks to God. Is it true? What was David really thinking at this point when he wrote this? Now, look further on. Look at verse 8. Now I say, blessed is the man that trusteth in him. Look at verse 9. Oh, fear the Lord, ye saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. There is no lack. There is no gap. And he said, verse 10, the young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seek the Lord, not the kings of Achish, shall not want any good thing. Then verse 11, come, ye children, hearken unto me, I will teach you. Now remember the lions? He said the lions do lack. The lions do lack. He remembered, I killed the lion, I deprived the lion of a meal. But who was the one who delivered me from the lion? Now he remembers, it was the Lord. Even the lions will lack, but the man that trusts in God, he will not lack. Now, David was not saying the end justifies the means, and he will continue to do that. He was saying, I want to teach you now. Learn from me. I want to teach you. Learn from me. Oh, come, children, hearken to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Look at verse 12. What is the man that desireth life and loveth many days, and he that seeth good? So he is saying this. I was afraid of death. I wanted to live on. Now, if you are someone like that, afraid of death, let me teach you one thing. Fear the Lord. Trust in him. Don't run to the enemies. Run to God. It is the Lord that delivers. Then you say, how do you explain the earlier part? How do you explain the earlier part about, the Lord delivered me out of all this? But yeah, and the next thing he said, well, I was wrong. All right? I was trusting in Achish. I was trusting in Saul. I was trusting in sinful ways. I was trusting in all this. But I want to tell you, do not. I want to teach you. How do you reconcile this? It's very easy. The first part, David is simply praying this. The fact that he acknowledged in the later part, I need to teach people not to be like me, not to trust in others, but the Lord. David is simply saying this. I sinned. Now he realized, I should not have behaved like that. And I will teach people not to behave like that. And the fact that though I sinned, but the Lord still delivered me. God did not at that point of time slap the consequences of sin upon me. I could have been at that point of time be killed by the king of Achish. And God could have used that as a chastisement for me not trusting him. But yet the Lord was merciful. The Lord did not deal with me according to my sins at that point. He still graciously, mercifully, patiently, long-sufferingly allowed me to escape. Why did Achish not kill him? He began to say, don't trust in God. God is the one that helps. It was not Achish that spared him. It was God. Achish could have not killed David because, well, he don't want to kick a man that was down. It could be that. Achish could have not killed David simply because, well, he wanted David to be, well, he turned mad, right? Let him go back to Israel. Let people see their hero is mad. There is a better way to shame Israel. Achish could simply have just felt, well, David has gone mad, so it's not much use to us. Let's kick him out of pity. We do not know why Achish spared him. But David knew. David knew. David knew it was not his deception. That's why I said, I want to teach you, don't. Now, please look. For example, verse 13. Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile. Do not deceive. Do not deceive. I want to teach you, do not deceive. You do not need to deceive. My case, God delivered me. It was God's mercy. Don't think that just because I was delivered out of God's mercy, it is a sanction for you to behave like me. I want to teach you, don't behave like that. God was so merciful to me. I should have been dealt with for sin. Christian, please know how God, and David knows the 10 Commandments. Please know how God views sin. Proverbs 6, God says, 6 things does the Lord hate. You know this very well. God hates things, please know. 6 things, 7 things. In fact, God include then say a proud look, a lying tongue. God hates lying. That is why David says, don't learn from me. If you want to live long, don't speak guile. Don't deceive. Deception doesn't achieve the end. God spared me simply because of his mercy, and I'm so thankful. I rejoice. And I learned. And after I've learned, I want you to learn. God says in Revelations, God describes who are in hell. Revelations 21 verse 8, just listen. The fearful, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the whoremongers, the sorcerers, the idolaters, and all liars. This is one thing that God did not include. He did not say all adulterers, all whoremongers, all sorcerers, all idolaters. But when it came to lying, he said all liars. What God is saying is, God, that is how much God hates lies, deception. All liars. Now, we are not teaching salvation by works. So if I have lied, I'm going to hell. We are all liars. We all have lied. And we will still fall into some of the sins. That is why we must turn to Christ as our personal Savior and ask him to wash away our sins. Only through Christ's finished work, his payment for our sins, not you trying to live a life without lying. It is simply by God's mercy. Turn to him. That is salvation. Don't ever think, if I don't lie, if I don't commit adultery, if I don't have a proud look, I'm going to heaven. In the first place, you can never do that perfectly. That is why you need Christ to die and pay completely for all your sins. You need to turn to him. Don't live with the Christianity think, I try to be good and then I have a chance to go to heaven. You have no chance because the penalty of sin is death. All liars, that's all of us. You will be in hell unless you trust in Christ's finished work instead of Christ plus my works. All right? I just want to make sure we understand that. Now, back here. David said, don't look at Psalm 34, verse 34. I say, you want to live long life? I learned one thing. Don't lie. Don't speak guile. Don't speak guile. Verse 14, depart from evil. What did he do? He departed from Israel and went to the enemies of Israel. He was teaching them everything about what he did and not to do. He was mercifully spared. He thanked God for that. Then he taught the people not to do. So now the question is this. What should we learn about how to respond? David made it extremely clear. All right? He made it extremely clear. Look at verse 9 of Psalm 34. Fear the Lord. It begins with that. Fear God. David feared King Achish. David feared for his life. David feared Saul. Now he teaches people, when you fear, you will speak guile. It begins there. Don't fear. Only fear God. Now, that's an important lesson for the Christian to learn. Christian, don't be so happy when by deception you got what you want. When you think by deception you escaped trouble. Don't be so happy. The test of a Christian is your integrity before God. That is what David wanted the people to learn. It's not that he escaped. Your integrity before God. Students, let this be your character. If I got distinction in my studies, but because I know along the way I cheated, I got some exam question. I asked people for the answers. You cheated one way or another. Even if you got distinction, you have failed before God. Please remember that. Your test of character before the living God, your testimony to the world before the living God, is not what you achieve in this world, is what you are under those circumstances, and you will still not deceive. Things will come out in the end. Parents, do not use your children's achievement and their grades, and don't teach them that this is what defines you. Do not. Same for the adults. You got promoted or you got this or that in your business or whatever, but through deception, not honesty. Don't feel so good about it. David taught the people, I escaped, yes. I got things, yes. But that was all wrong. Right? Don't measure your life with achievements and things. Measure it with your understanding that all that matters is I was honest before God. That is all that matters. When you die, you will meet God. All right? All will be known, even for the believer. You will hang your head in shame at the time. But for a long time, you may feel very good. That's the deceptiveness of deception. Now, so I hope that we all remember this, what David is trying to say now. Now, then the next one, all right? Look at first verse 11. Then he continues to say, well, I will teach you. Well, I'll teach you the fear of the Lord. Verse 12, if you want long days, if you love many good days, fear God. Always be so afraid. God, you see, you know. Then, verse 13, we say, don't lie, don't deceive. Well, stay away from evil. Now then, in verse 17, besides fear, what? The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth and delivereth them of all their troubles. Now, trust in God. Trust in God. Not only fear Him, all right? Trust in God. David trusted in man. David trusted even in the enemies of God. David trusted in Goliath's sword. David trusted in his own deception, cleverness of deception. How complete was his deception, right? How clever he was. David depended on all those things. But now he says, cry to God. Learn to trust in God. Christian, your solution when you are in fear, your solution when you feel that deception will help you escape, get what you want, do good even, is to fear God. Always know that God is the only one that matters, and what he sees and knows is the only thing that matters. The second one is learn to trust him. If David trusted God, like he did all this while, his life would have been the outcome would have been very, very different. He said, I learned that now. Trust God. I trusted in man, in things and all that. Trust God. Just because I was delivered by God, he was merciful. Don't do that. All right, so now David forgot that God was still on the throne. He thought that it is King Saul that is on the throne that controls his life. He thought that King Achish was the king on the throne that can help him. David forgot that God is still on the throne. That is the meaning of fear God and trust God. Let us rise to sing the closing hymn. Shall we rise? Hymn number 60. Hymn 60. Shall we rise? Hymn 60. God is still on the throne. 60.